3 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome aboard the postgame show along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. Plenty to get to on today's program as we continue discussing the rapid decline this season of South Carolina's baseball team. Now losers of 6 in a row. Carolina will get right back at it tomorrow afternoon during this time frame against the Alabama Crimson Tide. First pitch is scheduled for 2 o'clock Eastern, so a 1:45 airtime. That we know will happen, the 1:45 airtime. Whether or not game one of the day is done, which is Georgia and LSU, remains to be seen. We do know Dylan Eskew is going to start, which I think is, if there is any glimmer of good news for tomorrow, is that you've got Dylan Eskew ready to go. He's the guy that just a few weeks back shut out the number one team in the country, the Kentucky Wildcats, and then didn't have a good outing against Mizzou, and really hadn't heard much from Dylan since, other than some negatives. South Carolina now, in addition to having the pitching get away from him, has scored 1 run in its last 17 innings. They only scored 7 combined runs against Tennessee when they were averaging 7 runs a game against Georgia just a week prior. So even the offense, which has been something you can count upon, has now gone south. And it isn't as if Tennessee pitching had lights out numbers, that were matched, with what Arkansas and A&M are doing. 2 teams, by the way, that you did play pretty well against. You won a game from each of them. Yeah, I'll be honest, y'all. I'm just going to kind of jump right in. I don't get it. I follow this team closely. I follow the sport closely. By the sport, I mean both college baseball and just baseball in general. Things happen, trends happen. Your teams go into slumps. This team is most definitely, in a slump. I couldn't pick a worse time to get into one, but it just seems to have come on, Elijah, so quickly that and I'm not suggesting there is anything. I don't know, and you wouldn't get an answer from a coach or player if there were, in my opinion, unless it was something glaring. But is something else at work here? What's going on? Why is this slide happening the way it is? Now, I know the cynics out there, before I turn it over to you, Mr. Campbell, I know the cynics will put it squarely 100% and above on the shoulders of the head coach, and I get that. I don't fully agree with that. A coach of a team always has his or her share of the responsibility for how they set the team up, how they scout the opponent, etc. And Mark, this is not to absolve Mark or Matt or Monty from anything. Matt is a pretty good pitching coach, but the pitching has let him down. Monty's a pretty good hitting coach, but they're no longer hitting, and they were already striking out a lot and leaving guys on base. There have been big things to be desired. So, I get all that. But that being said, at some point, and you and I touched on this last week, players have to go play, and this is baseball. At some point, again, I just mentioned you beat Arkansas, you beat A&M. You'd love to take a series from. You took a series from Kentucky. You took a series at Florida, who just took a series from Georgia. You swept Vanderbilt. But you got to go win a baseball game. And the last time I checked, a coach and his staff do not throw, do not swing, do not catch, do not run. At some point, these guys got to look at themselves and say, boys, we got to go win a baseball game. So everything right now, Elijah, just seems to be crumbling down upon them, and I can't quite figure out what it is that's caused this.
They look defeated. I think that's the thing. Even in the game on Saturday against Tennessee, when they continuously kept getting out at the plate, and when they would even survive innings, they would get to the plate, strike out looking, and just look defeated. It does kind of feel like there is a zapping of enthusiasm that has happened, even with the team right now. I know after the Georgia series, Mark in the postgame presser talked about getting the guys together and asking them, do you guys think the season's over? And they all said no. But at the same time, even when he said that in the postgame presser, it kind of felt zapped, right? There was a feeling in that room that the enthusiasm for the rest of the season got completely zapped, and they played like it was at the plate. Look, Drew Beam's a really good pitcher. Tennessee's best pitcher, who's usually the middle of the weekend pitcher, is solid. But there's some vulnerability in that pitching staff, and they didn't take advantage of any of it. If you would have told me that there'd be a game they held the Volunteers to 4 runs in a game, I'm telling you, that's the one they win. Yeah. You hop on that opportunity, you take it, you get a win at the number 1 team in the country, you boost your resume a little bit, and there's a little less pressure on you to have to win in a place where you historically have been terrible. But they couldn't take advantage of that. And I think that is just a microcosm of where this team is at right now. There's an overarching frustration of like a feeling of whack-a-mole, right? Like you finally got a little bit of pitching this weekend, or you finally got a pitcher to get you past the 5th inning without substantial damage, right? And you still lost that game because he was in maybe 1 inning too late. But then, you're still able to get enough outs, and you're still able to keep some zeros on the scoreboard against one of the best hitting lineups, if not the best hitting lineup in the country, but now you can't generate the runs to win. Early in the season, what was it? You're getting hits, but you can't hit with runners in scoring position, and you're losing close games.
A lot of LOB, yeah.
Yeah, and 2 games against Clemson where you lose by 1 run in which you left a lot on base. Then you get to the point in the SEC season where you're generating a ton of runs, and offensively you have found a lineup that worked, but you can't get your pitching now to be able to match up with it. You can't figure out the roles for your pitchers. You can't get guys to start games and get you halfway through a game before having to go to your bullpen, which has been inconsistent for the most part this year. But then you finally get a little bit going on the mound in the last game and a half against Tennessee, and only Cole Messina is a guy who can get a hit in, 26 at-bats?
Something like that.
That's the frustrating thing with this team, is they've shown at different times this year, different players have had flashes that showed what this team can be. They have not once been able to put all of it together for an entire weekend against a high-quality opponent that makes you feel really good. And now when you've lost 7 straight, now you're just digging for something to find some enthusiasm, and it feels like this team has run out of places to dig.
Yeah, and I don't know, if a long bus ride back from Knoxville Saturday night and then another, 5-hour-ish, maybe close to 6-hour ride to Hoover today is any better for them. That's just boring when you're not having fun. Does that manifest itself in even more negativity? I'm not predicting that. I don't know. Mark spoke today. Let me go ahead and tell y'all, typically, of course, Coach Kingston is with us on Mondays during the season, but because they're playing tomorrow, they're traveling as we speak. So Mark had a press conference today in the noon hour. He will not be with us today, but we'll get some comments from what he had to say. But I'll go ahead and tell you one of the things that he said was, I'm paraphrasing, is we know it looks like doom and gloom to the folks on the outside, but that's not how it is on the inside. Now, does that go back to a point you made about a couple of weeks ago? What else are you going to say, kind of a thing? Is there some truth to it in that the guys are doing their level-headed best to keep their head up? I don't know what they might have done yesterday or today, and just a little bit of, you're not going to practice hard the next couple of days, but you've got to get out there and at least, go through a few fundamental routines and things like that. Look, they know what's at stake, and they as Mark told us a week ago when we asked them, amongst many things, about what's going poorly. What's the chatter amongst the guys when it comes to the postseason opportunity potentially slipping away from you? And he said, look, like everybody else, they see the projections. They know what's up. I'll go ahead and tell you, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. Carolina, the D1 guys, Mark Etheridge and Aaron Fitt and Kendall Rogers, did their latest projections podcast today. I was watching it live. Elijah watched a portion of it as well. And they've still got South Carolina in. Now, I will tell you, this was the first time that I actually listened to them debate the merits of South. They basically had South Carolina, Florida, LSU, and Vanderbilt, and I'm missing one. Oh, and Alabama in a discussion, and basically said, I don't know if we can get all these teams in. Ultimately, they did. They weren't trying to necessarily, but it was interesting because what they did is they were ready to kind of put them all in during the course of their discussion. And then they took all 5 of them and moved them into the bubble column so they could go ahead and put like a couple of other automatic qualifiers in and then see how many spots were left. And ultimately, they all came around to the conclusion that the strength of schedule number, the RPI number, and a few of the other advanced metrics that all are favorable to SEC teams were working to their advantage. And even said of South Carolina and Florida, and it was Kendall Rogers who said it, and again, I'll paraphrase, but it's like, hey, if the committee / NCAA are going to not only come up with these new analytical formulas, but if you're going to come up with these and then tell us that's going to be part of how you measure a club, then you actually have to use them to measure a club. And each of those teams that were in the Southeastern Conference bubble discussion all were looked upon quite favorably when it came to both the RPI and some of the other analytics. Now, tomorrow Carolina plays Alabama. I don't think it's necessarily – it's definitely an elimination game from this tournament. I don't know at this point, and this was the scenario we talked about. This was the caveat we left open. If you get swept again, and you did, and you go to Hoover and don't win, then that level of certainty, which was very high, never 100%, but very close because of the metrics that we just discussed. But if that happens, I'm not saying all bets are off, but I'm saying Carolina absolutely moves squarely onto the bubble and is potentially out of this event if the national event, that is, if the committee deems them unworthy based on how they might go into the tournament. Again, Alabama is sort of in your boat. Bama right now has, I think, a touch better RPI.
They're one spot above you in the RPI.
So, a win and you trade places, right?
Essentially. A win and a Vanderbilt win. And Vanderbilt, if they get in the top 25 of the RPI, which they're at 27, you can pick up 4 quad 1 wins in a day.
So Vandy will play Florida tomorrow. That also feels kind of like the Carolina-Alabama game. It has, and that one might be even more of a direct national elimination game.
That one definitely.
Especially if Florida loses. Now, Florida did themselves big favors by going to Athens and taking a series this weekend.
They had their best win collectively, wins of the season this past weekend.
And then, just as fate would have it, State and Ole Miss play tomorrow night. But they're both Ole Miss is pretty much done, unless Ole Miss can win this tournament, because they lost this past weekend. They got swept by LSU, actually.
Yeah, that's a direct elimination.
Yeah. And LSU did themselves a lot of favors. So anyway, it's okay for now. But in terms of national tournament chances, it is far, far from okay when it comes to how this team is playing. And, I would think there's very little optimism about what happens tomorrow. Again, is there a glimmer of good news that Dylan Eskew is pitching tomorrow? Perhaps, if he can regain some form like he had against Kentucky and a few others earlier in the season. If not, and listen, other than the team, there may be as many Gamecock fans in the stands as there will be in the dugout.
Location does you no favors.
Yeah. Everybody else will be cheering their rear end off for the Alabama Crimson Tide.
A lot of houndstooth in the stands.
Yeah. So whether that matters or not remains to be seen, but it does not bode well. Join us, discuss 803-404-6100 on the phone lines or the text line. We'll get into that for you. We'll get into the full D1 projections. We'll got some sound from Coach Kingston. We'll get into a lot of the other things going on, including, speaking of being swept, the Atlanta Braves just got swept by the San Diego Padres. Oh, my God.
What a weekend for you.
Yeah, at least Arsenal won. And they didn't win the title, though. I'm not having a good day, man.
No, it's not. You can't even enjoy the one win you got.
I can't. But I'm trying. But I'll do my best to pick it back up on a Monday. You're listening to the postgame show. 20 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Monday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. It's the postgame show. No guest today. All us, all you. 803-404-6100. We do have some sound that we'll get to in just a second from the D1 Baseball podcast today. You can get it on their YouTube channel or on Sirius XM. And we talked to Aaron on Friday, so we appreciate his time. Let's jump into that, and then we'll come back around. Again, about, let's say this is what, 2 hours ago? Sound about right?
Roughly, yeah, middle of the day.
About 2 hours ago, the guys had their live podcast. The guys being Aaron Fitt, Kendall Rogers, Mark Etheridge, the guys that run D1Baseball.com. This is primarily Aaron and Mark discussing the merits of South Carolina in the tournament projections.
But also, if you're 9-18 against Q1, for instance, I mean that's what, 33%? Is that a 333 winning percentage? Do I have that math right?
That's not what you want.
It's not good. Like it's right. One thing. I mean, and that's South Carolina's record against Q1. Like, yeah, you played a lot of Q1 teams. Like, kudos, but like you won 33% of them. Like a 333 winning percentage is bad against anybody. I don't care if they're good teams. It's bad. Period.
So they should just play worse teams? Is that what you said?
No, they should play better against good teams if they're going to play a lot of good teams. Like, you have a luxury. You play in a great league.
Yeah.
You play in a great league. You have this opportunity in front of you. Play better, and don't lose your last potentially 7 games. Like, if they lose their playing game, that's a 7-game losing streak with a 9-19 record against Q1. Like, I don't like their chances in that situation.
All Q1 games are not the same, okay?
That's true.
You look at the Q1 team South Carolina played. Look at the very top of the RPI and tell me how far you get down before you find one South Carolina didn't play, okay?
Yeah.
You're going to get to 8, okay? So they played the top 7 RPI teams. Well, who's going to win those games, right? You're not going to have a lot of success if you play that many good teams. And that's kind of where when you're trying to do this, yeah, I'm playing a quad 1 team. It's on the road and they're 40, right? Well, that counts just the same as a home game against Kentucky.
That's
okay.
Fair.
Well, that's not the same. But and that's what I'm trying to go in and look at the nuance between how these are being judged.
That last voice was Mark Etheridge. The other was our buddy Aaron Fitt. Mark makes a good point, and they did go on to discuss, again, some of the other metrics and analytics that are favoring South Carolina still. I'm not here to tell any of y'all this, nor is Elijah, to make you feel better about the team or anything like that. That's really, I think we've all.
It wouldn't make me feel better.
Yeah, I think we've kind of crossed a Rubicon there. Winning games is going to make you feel better. But, for those, and I can compartmentalize, I think there's 2, possibly 3 groups of fans right now. There are the fans that absolutely 100% are backing them and want them to very much make the national tournament wherever it is that they may be seated and sent. I think there are those who are a little bit mixed of like, well, I do want them to go, but I don't think we're going to do very well, and I don't want this to continue. And then I think there probably is a third group that's like, no, I don't want him to go because I don't want the guy in charge to be here anymore. And if they don't go, then I know he's going to be gone. Which I don't know that to be the case, by the way, but I'm assuming that's how some people feel. And again, I'm not judging anybody, but we're sharing this with you because these are the experts that don't have a dog in the hunt telling you this is still a ball club when all is said and done, that at least for today still projects to be in without too much consternation. That said, Aaron Fitt is 100% right. And that's what you and I said at the top of this show. At some point, this is sports. You have to go win a game. And this is baseball, where you get lots of chances to go win a game. And you seem to be regressing. And that is still going to be the rest of the afternoon as we discuss this, and even tomorrow in a build-up to a tournament game in Hoover. Why are they sliding so quickly? And I don't, again, I'm not here to argue with those who don't like Mark Kingston. You can say it's on him to a large degree. I'm not going to disagree with you. You're right, it is. But it's not all on him. It's just not. Because coaches don't play. And he's got some good players. Cole Messina just got named all-conference. Ty Good, until the last couple of weeks, had a conference ERA under 3. I mean, Ethan Petrie is still a dude who has moved into number 6 all time in South Carolina home run history. You've got some guy. Kennedy Jones is having a solid season, and on I could go with some guys that are playing well. Collectively, not enough. An untimely injury to Will Tippett seemed to have disrupted things a little bit, but then they kind of got back on track, and then they didn't. I don't know if it's not really on Tippett one way or another, Elijah. All I'm going to say is, as much as you may dislike Mark Kingston and think it's time for Mark Kingston to go, and that's fine to feel that way. I'm not here to, again, not here to judge. But players have to go pitch, hit, catch, run, and win a bleeping baseball game. And they aren't right now. And I can't say it's solely because of the last 2 teams they played. You're good enough to have beaten both of them at least once, and you just can't find that way.
Right. Well, the last 2 weeks of futility has been pretty much an egalitarian effort. I think there's been a lot of blame to go around. We can cut that big old blame pie into a lot of pieces, and no one's going hungry, right? Like the pitching in the Georgia series, as atrocious as it was, it was so bad to the point where you scored 7 runs a game in a series against a top 5 RPI team and still couldn't squeak out a game. That same pitching staff did not give up a double-digit run game to the best hitting team in America. But you still couldn't score enough against a slightly above average pitching staff to win a game. You haven't gotten anybody on the same page at once.
Right.
And in baseball, you've got to be able to get both from your bats and from your arms. And they can't seem to get them at the same time. And you can tell that it's a dejecting experience for a lot of these players too. Guys that were hitting really, really well just 2 or 3 weeks ago haven't hit as well. Kennedy Jones struggled a little bit. Talmadge LeCroy's had a stretch. He had, he's had some RBIs this weekend, but his bat has really declined over the last little bit. And as good as Ethan Petrie's been, as good as he, hits that home run to start the game on Thursday night to give you a little bit of hope that, hey, that we're bringing the bats to Knoxville. Mm-hmm. They go completely dead for the last 2 games. You have a chance to basically just face Tennessee's bullpen for the entire game, and you squeeze 1 run. You went like 26 straight batters without anybody getting a hit, with only Cole Messina getting a hit in that stretch. That will not win anything. I don't care how well you're pitching. They just haven't been able to get everything going at once, and that is an incredibly frustrating thing for this team. And you can tell that no matter what Mark Kingston's trying to do with the lineup, hadn't worked the last 2 weeks, even though he's gotten some runs. It hadn't worked because you haven't been winning because the pitching was bad. And then when you think you found a good rotation or you found something that can get you deep into a game and it still be competitive, you still can't get your bats to live up to what they were doing a couple weeks ago with the exact same lineup you had that you thought was working. It's a mixture of a lot of things. Yeah. And I don't think there's a player on this team right now where you can't point at one stretch in these last 2 weeks where they have played you can't find a stretch for any of these guys in the last 2 weeks in this losing streak where they haven't played poorly.
Yeah, I agree. And Mark and Monty are doing all they can with that lineup.
Yeah.
Trying to find, shift
you thought
the guy
you had
here,
it.
move a guy there or something.
For the last 4 weeks, you thought you've had it because it was putting up these ridiculous offensive numbers.
And that's what baffles me. It's like, where'd it go? It just just gone.
Disappeared.
Yeah, it's just gone. I did make a mistake earlier, by the way. The Braves have not been swept because there's a doubleheader today because of the rain out on Saturday. So they actually are going to play again at 5 o'clock.
They're swept up to this point.
So there's a sliver of hope that the Braves will split a doubleheader today and not get swept.
The Padres are sweeping. The swept is not past tense. They're in the middle of it. We still have to collect the goods in the dustpan.
And still have their broom in their hand. Maybe something better will happen. More on Carolina baseball as the post-game show continues. Talking Carolina baseball, college baseball as a whole, the D1 guys have put out their latest projections. Ole Miss is now out of the tournament after being swept by LSU, but LSU has moved themselves in. Florida has moved themselves in after taking 2 of 3 from Georgia. South Carolina is still in. Vandy is holding on. Vandy took just 1 of their games against Kentucky, but they have a nice opportunity tomorrow against Florida. Here's how the SEC tournament shakes out. Tomorrow morning, 10:30, first pitch. Gosh, like Saturday Little League, man.
Hey, 9:30 local time.
Yeah, I know, yeah, in Hoover, 9:30.
Got to eat your pregame meal at like 4.
I do remember some games on Saturdays, like so early. Anyways, Georgia against LSU. Winner gets Kentucky on Wednesday. Same time slot. Carolina, Bama tomorrow, scheduled for 2. Winner gets Arkansas, same time slot, Wednesday. Vandy and Florida, 5:30. Winner gets Tennessee. State and Ole Miss. Winner gets A&M. Losers tomorrow are all eliminated. Then the double elim format begins on Wednesday. So tomorrow is a definite play-in round for all these teams. Dylan Eskew is going to start for Carolina tomorrow. Cut number 7, please, Elijah. This is a quick cut. This was Coach Kingston after the loss and what he's trying to do to keep this team motivated.
Well, the regular season's over. The new season starts. We've shown on most days we can go toe-to-toe with anybody, but we've got to get over that hump. I've said that a lot. That was a game today in the postseason. That was 2 good teams going at it. These guys like playing together. They're not going to back down.
All right, admit it, most of you were listening to Tennessee's own Justin Timberlake sing rather than whatever Mark might have said there at the last.
Completely drowned out by Justin Timberlake, which if you're going to get drowned out by anybody, that's a good one to get drowned out to.
You going to that show? He's playing here soon.
What? When?
It's like next month, right? But the
Really?
tickets are like super cheap, man. They're like $10.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. I'll take your word for that. Yeah, absolutely.
like-
I will walk up to the counter with a $10 bill, say, this is all I have. I will take 1 ticket, please.
Yeah. Then it's really more like $10 for every 10 minutes of show, apparently.
Ooh.
Yeah, they ain't cheap.
I'll pay $10 for 10 minutes.
Yeah, they'll let you in.
And then after 10 minutes, they can pull me out.
Yeah.
Escort me out.
Yeah. Yeah, he is coming here soon. Now, look, he's right. They've gone toe-to-toe with some great teams. They have some solid wins. They do. And there's several of them. Now, we heard earlier from Aaron Fitt, there's not enough of them. And at least, well, Aaron didn't say that. He didn't say there's not enough of them. He said,
Apparently.
if you're 9-18, yeah, you probably should have done a little better. You don't have to have a 500 record per se, but maybe you could be 11-16, and that would look a lot better for you, or something like that. And it would. It would. It would take you out of any peril.
Yeah.
You'd still be a 3 seed. And I think by the way, let me go back. They had Carolina as the 3 in Charlottesville, right?
Yep, and Oregon is the 2.
Oregon is the 2. Thank you. Just go win a game tomorrow. I mean, I don't want to. I don't. We're
a very
going
winnable game. This is the most winnable game you've played in 3 weeks.
I agree. At least in conference, right? Yeah. I 100% agree. Again, what worries me tomorrow is that there will be 0 crowd there for South Carolina and all crowd there for Alabama.
It's a road game for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, it won't count as one, but it will be. And I don't even know. I don't even know who the home team is. Have you looked?
The home team will technically be Alabama.
Okay. So for the baseball purposes?
Yes.
Okay.
For batting
Thank you.
order purposes.
That makes it even worse.
Yeah. No, it makes it even more truer of a road game.
Dylan Eskew just needs to go pitch his tail off. And, I'm not telling the team to be more aggressive, but, don't, again, like Stuart Lake said to us the other day, no called third strikes.
And they had so many of those.
It's
so many this weekend.
And I don't know, if Damani and Mark holler at him when they come back. I mean, some of them too. I'm like, y'all, you gotta swing the bat.
Can't hit the ball if you don't swing it.
That's what I'm saying. And that's where, I can come around to a player and a coach at the same time. But a lot of people are only yelling at Mark. And I'm not saying don't yell at Mark, but, again, Monty and Matt are watching their particular guys also kind of slip away here. There's responsibility to go around. And that's what I'm saying. I don't get it. Is that, I don't want to go too far with it, because then speculation becomes some sort of fact in the world we live in.
Right.
Perception becomes reality, and I'm not here for that. I don't know. Mark will tell you, hey, it's not as bad internally as you may think it is. All right, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'm going to read between the I'll take that for what it is. A coach is supposed to say that. Now, if he straight up said, guys, it's bad in there, you don't want to be in that locker room, then the problems have gotten so exacerbated that you cannot hide them anymore.
But who are the leaders on this team, and are they doing something about it? From a look, sometimes when you hear about a players only meeting, it again, the perception is, oh, well, they don't like the coaches.
No.
And that means they're trying to take over the team like some kind of coup.
Not normally, no.
Yeah, I think a players-only meeting can still be, like we said, there's a reality here in sports. Hey, guys, we play. We are the players. We have to go do something. What do you guys want to do? Do you use some type of pep talk that channels Mike Bianco's Ole Miss team of a couple of seasons ago that was a 3 seed, that limped through SEC play, that just couldn't ever seem to get it going, but had a week off, had a chance to go, and then won the College World Series. Now, I'm not saying South Carolina's going to do that.
No.
But I am telling you that recent history shows that a team of your ilk has done that. And that if you could find a way to just, but again, I can sit here and read, whether it's, a book by Honus Wagner or, Connie Mack or Bobby Cox or Joe Torre or Rod Dato or Skip Bertman. I can read you every book from every great coach that's been out there. I don't know if Honus Wagner ever managed or not, but all the other ones did.
He did play baseball, though.
He did.
Long time ago.
And, I can read you baseball for dummies. I can read you baseball for smartasses.
Both on sale at your local Barnes & Noble.
But if you don't go hit the ball, like in Bull Durham, you throw the ball, you catch the ball, you hit the ball. This is not hard, something. Go do it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put that on the players. At some point, go do it. Again, what does the long-term future hold for this program? I don't know. We'll discuss that when there are no more games to be played. Mm-hmm. But in the short term, there are games to be played, and players with uniforms and gloves and helmets and bats go win a baseball game.
And here's the thing, they're clearly devoid of some confidence right now. That's one thing one thing I can take out of this weekend is that there's probably a zapping of confidence that's happening within that team too, which is totally normal human reaction when you drop 6 straight games. I don't care if you're playing the best teams in the country or if you're going to play Cal State Northridge. Does not matter, right? One thing I found fascinating here in just the last few weeks, I listened to a lot of LeBron James and JJ Redick's podcast, Mind the Game, and they got in a conversation once, and JJ goes, "Don't tell me you've never just watched your YouTube highlights." And they laughed, and LeBron goes, "No, I do that to this day. If I'm in a slump, I'm going to go watch my YouTube highlights and say, that guy is in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. Where is he? Mm-hmm. Where is he?" If I'm on this coaching staff, I'm blowing up the phone of anybody who's keeping up with all the video, who's doing the social media stuff, and say, give me the best highlights from every single one of these players this year. We're going to sit in a room and look at every single one and say, look, that Cole Messina's here somewhere. Look, that Dalton Reeves is in this room somewhere. That same Ethan Petrie is in this room. You didn't go anywhere. That's still the same person. Or Talmadge LeCroy. Look, that Talmadge LeCroy's here somewhere. He's in this room right now. That same one. It's not a different person we're looking at on the screen. And just go down the line, because at some point, you got to realize that you can do it because your body of work has indicated that you have. Now is the point of the season where you really got to get your head out of it and be able to look at what you've done and replicate the good things that you've done, because you're getting to the point where it is too late.
Yeah, I mean, tomorrow could be the last game. It could. I don't think it will be, win or lose, but it could. But if I tell you this much, you win tomorrow, it's definitely not, and I don't even just mean that you have 2 more in the SEC. Mm-hmm. I think at that point you can secure yourself because, again, you're kind of battling with Bama. 803-404-6100. This is the Monday Postgame Show.